So good morning, everyone. I will try to keep to some extent, within the theme of meditation. This is actually a separate talk, but it should fit in. Questions can be about anything this weekend on meditation or anything else. I like questions, so I'll try to leave some time for that. The title of this talk is The Grace of the Mind, and this is based on I guess we can say a song, poem or song that Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of, that he mentions many times in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Let me just read that, just this one line. Guru Krishna Vaishnav Tina Doya Hole, Aka Doya Bine Jivo Chare Kare Galo. This means that even if one has the grace of these three, so what are the three? One is the Guru, one is the Lord, and the other is the devotees. The jiva, lacking the grace of the one, becomes nothing but dust and ashes. So he used to repeat this quite often. Swami Brahmananda, you will see, was also very, very fond of this verse. He used to repeat it. What is that one? That one is the mind. So Swami Brahmananda used to say to some of the young monks, "My boys, you have the grace of the Guru. You have the desire for spiritual knowledge. By receiving the Lord's name, you have received his grace, and you also have the society of the holy. Now you must strive to get the grace of your own minds. By gaining mastery over your own minds, you will, by its grace, realize the grace of God and the grace of the Guru." So there's a very fascinating idea that because we assume grace of God is all we need, that there's something even greater than the grace of God. We can have all of these other types of grace. If the mind doesn't cooperate, then everything falls apart. So this is the idea. Thakur emphasized this so much, how much the role of the mind plays in spiritual life, that the bondage, liberation, realization, everything takes place through the mind itself. We have no other instrument to realize something higher in life than this very mind. So I want to go through a little bit what exactly this means. What do we mean by the grace of the mind? What are the philosophical ramifications? We spoke a lot yesterday and the night before about what is the nature of the mind? What do we mean by mind? My conclusion was that we don't know, really. That we can analyze the way the so-called mind works. Psychologically, we know a lot about it. We understand in some scholars, we understand so many things about the restlessness of the mind and everything, but what the mind actually is a big question mark. So if we don't even know what it is, how do we understand the grace of the mind? Anyhow, we'll find out that the metaphysics is secondary. I tried to emphasize that yesterday also. So there are some ramifications of that. And what are the practical implications for spiritual life? Because ultimately, if things aren't practical, they're not useful. There's as much theory as we have, as much philosophy as we have. If it doesn't translate into some practical element and cannot be utilized in our spiritual life and spiritual practice, then it's just for fun. There are many people who derive great joy out of reading philosophical things and analyzing these things. There's no harm. But we have to put things into practice if we want to really lead a genuine spiritual type of life. It has to change us, and it has to have ramifications for us. So what are the ramifications of all of this? So let's look at the individual elements first. The role of holy company and the guru in spiritual life. Again, if we look at the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, and we see how many times he's asked that one question, upay ki. How do we realize God? He'll talk about God realization, then someone will say upay ki. It happens many, many times. What are the means by which one can realize God? Now, most of the time, he'll give a different list. There'll be a different list, but most of the time, number one is holy company. Now, why does he emphasize holy company so much? What do we gain from holy company? One thing is conviction. Unless we see that spiritual life, spiritual practice has brought about some transformation in someone's life, unless we see the joy that comes from leading a spiritual life, unless we see the conviction that these great souls have, how real everything is, we won't have that longing to achieve that ourselves. We may read about these things, the God realization and everything, but how many of us just through reading will have that tremendous faith and belief that it's possible? We have to see it. So there's a holy company that gives it that type of conviction. Some transference takes place, something unperceivable, something just automatic seems to take place with the holy company that very easily will happen without our even noticing it. The more we keep the company of holy people, the more the mind will undergo a change, and we'll start to behave like that. And we'll start to see the deeper meaning behind things. If we see somebody who's always calm and peaceful and quiet, we'll say, yes, I want to be like that. Now I know what I have to do in order to become like that. So there's a holy company is extremely important. Mahapurusha samsraya. We read this one verse in the beginning of Viveka Chudamani that three things are necessary, three different types of grace are necessary, and one is this company of the holy. The other is this human birth, and then also this longing for liberation. We have these, so this holy company is indispensable. That if we don't have it directly, we get it indirectly through the Gospel of Swami Krishna, Gospel of Holy Mother. If we really feel, this is why the Gospel was written the way it was written, the Gospel of Swami Krishna. It was written in such a way that we feel that we're sitting there, that we know exactly where Thakur is sitting, we know who else is in the room, we know time of day, we know if the Ganga is flowing north or south, we know everything. And did it that way, so we feel that we're actually there with him. So that's also a type of holy company. So there's a holy company is the first thing, and we can say even this is the grace of God. What do we mean by the grace of God? If we only mean by the grace of God, God realization, that we somehow we get zapped and the skies open up and we have that ultimate realization, then the verse doesn't make sense. So this God realization will be, what God-given gifts do we have? So even this Mahapurusha, this Manusyatvam, even born as with this human, having this human birth, being born so close to the life of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and all the great disciples, that many of us are disciples of direct disciples, some even disciples of Holy Mother. So how close we are in time, and to have access to this holy company means everybody. It doesn't just mean sadhus. To have the company of other devotees and to have some longing for to lead a spiritual life and to lead a life dedicated to a higher ideal. All of this is the grace of God. We have to feel that, because what did we do to deserve all of this? See, this idea of grace is that things come into our lives that we feel that were unearned, that we don't know. Especially, I have to say, those who come to this monastic life. I think all of us feel that without Thakur's grace is not possible. So this is that we can say this is that grace of God, and then, as I say, it is all of us are a type of holy company. So this is very clearly stated, as I say, in this Viveka Chudamani, that all of these things are or necessary, longing for realization, this even this very human birth, and the company of the holy. So where does the grace of the mind come in? So what this verse is saying is we can have all of these God-given gifts that we have. If the mind doesn't cooperate, then we won't be able to utilize them. So a very brilliant psychological type of verse. This without the grace of the mind, then everything goes to dust and ashes. So we can say, what is the real meaning of it? Despite the fact we've been given every advantage to realize God, and thus the mind cooperates, even an enlightened guru, even the most greatest holy company, all of these other things won't be enough. We can be given a gift and not be able to appreciate it or use it or enjoy it. So we have to take some responsibility over this mind of ours and understand that that's key to everything. Liberation, bondage, everything. Thakur used this expression, mon niye kotha. He used to say everything is a question of the mind. So a very important teaching of Swami Krishna. He used to repeat another small, I think, part of a song again, that has these two words in it, montor and tormon. There's montor, this is mantra. Mantra in a colloquial way, it can be pronounced that montor and tormon. So I've given, he said, the Guru says, I've given you the mantra, montor. Now everything is tormon, everything is up to your mind. So we've received that grace from the Guru. Now everything is up to us. How do we utilize that? So now everything depends on the mind itself. So what do we mean exactly by the grace of the mind? I want to talk about a few different ways in which we can understand this particular phrase. One is a very common thing. We know that most of the time we're at the mercy of the mind itself, whether we're in a good mood or a bad mood, that sometimes we can't figure out why, that normally we're very cheerful people. One day we wake up and everything is gloomy, that we just can't account for it in any special way, but we see how much this mood plays with regard to the mind. Swami Swanandaji, he used to say very often, he would say, if a small child is in a good mood, then, or is in a bad mood, give it candy and it'll cry. If it's in a good mood, give it a slap and it'll laugh. Yeah, so the role that this external world plays in our state of mind is secondary to the state of mind itself. And so if we have a cheerful mind, this is also part of what's meant by the grace of the mind. Even if we have a well-functioning mind, we know that now it's so common for people to suffer from depression and all sorts of other problems that if we feel that we have at least still a mind that's a little bit sharp and clear and everything, we should feel very grateful for that. We see so many people, of course, this isn't the ultimate meaning of this, but still, that we should feel this is also a type of grace, no matter how bad our health gets in old age. If the memory is still there and the mind is intact, it's a great blessing. It's a great blessing. So this is also one of the meanings of the grace of the mind. But in spiritual life, now we're really talking about this. The mind is either our best friend or our worst enemy. So in Gita, much of the Gita has this idea, and it's a psychological idea, that udhared atmanatmanam, that we have to lift up the mind. How do we do it? With the mind itself. Never let it go down. And then it says that the mind is our best friend when it's controlled, and our worst enemy when it's not controlled. So how do we understand this? The mind controlling the mind. Yeah, this is that the metaphysical part of this whole thing, that how do we understand all of that, that mind can separate itself and observe itself and control itself to a certain extent. But the point is that no matter how much we think we're in control of the mind has its ups and downs no matter what. And we have to understand that and deal with that. When the mind is cheerful, then we say this by God's grace, the grace of the mind. Swami Brahmananda, he used to say, just as the Ganges has its ebb and flow, so is there an ebb and flow in the spiritual mood in the beginning of spiritual life. So we wake up one morning and we feel tremendous devotion. The next morning we wake up, everything's gone. One morning we have absolute conviction that this is the only life to lead. The next morning we wonder what we were thinking about. And we don't know why these changes come. So he says, but in the beginning, there's ebb and flow in spiritual mood. Later you will continue, as you continue, there will come an even flow in the mind towards God. So we have to understand that this will happen. Some will have tremendous faith in God. The next day they won't. What is this idea of God at all? So the mind will have its ups and downs. It's important for us to realize that, so that when we go through the down periods, we know that this is ebb and there'll be a flow. We know that if it goes down, that it'll come back up again. So in the beginning, we understand that we don't have this as much control over the mind as we think, with regard to moods and with regard even to convictions that we have. We want to reach a point where we're not at the mercy of that lower mind. So there's a battle that takes place. One, this lower mind is based on the old samskaras. It's based on desires. It's based on fears and doubts and everything else. Higher mind is based on reasoning, and it's based on some higher ideal, and they do battle with each other. So we have to try to develop this higher type of mind and keep a positive attitude all of the time. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but there's something in the Cherokee tradition that the story, the grandfather is telling the grandson that within us, there are two wolves. One is very vicious and always going after people and doing terrible things. And the other one is good and well-behaved and everything. And so the young boy says, well, how do we know which one will defeat? And they're fighting each other. Which one will win? And he says, the one that you feed. So we have to keep giving ourselves positive thoughts. We have to keep practicing discrimination between what is it that we really want out of life and what is it that'll give some little temporary type of enjoyment, or even what is it that's just pure out and out selfish. And we have to reach the point where we understand that the selfish things are the things that don't bring happiness. So all of this is that play of the mind, and the mind that naturally gravitates towards this is the mind in that state of grace. As Ramakrishna says, the mind itself becomes the guru at some point. So when do we trust this mind? When do we trust this mind? When it's reached the state of purity, when it's reached the state of unselfishness. Otherwise, we can't trust this mind. We have to keep analyzing. Is this mind trying to fool me? Is this mind trying to tell me this is really good for me and it's really not? At some point, we get our bearings and we can trust what the mind will tell us. So this idea of the practice of discrimination, vichara, is nothing absolute. It depends on the state of the mind. I'll give you one simple example, that with regard to food, that we can analyze and say that this type of food is very, very good. It's delicious. I love it very much, but it's not good for me. It's bad for my health, and it gives me a heartburn. I may stay up all night if I take this. There's one type of discrimination and analysis that will say that I won't do it. Second type, also discrimination analysis and everything, that this life is short. Why not have some enjoyment in this life? That I suffer, I'll get over that also. But I enjoy it, why not? What's the harm? This is also, yeah, using our reason, but this is the lower mind cheating the higher mind. Yeah. So we have to pay attention to the way this mind works, to analyze the fickle nature of this mind and the independent nature of this mind. I said yesterday this idea, the mind has a mind of its own, that we have to take charge of it. This is the whole thing. And what are the metaphysics of this? Don't bother about that. Who is the I who is looking at the mind and doing all of that? Because we all have that understanding that we have some control over the mind. We should. We're trying to develop that control over the mind itself. In meditation, it's difficult, of course, but when it comes to everyday decisions, we should be able to do that much. So we want this mind to act as our friend. And when the mind acts as our friend, we can feel that it's because of grace, because it can turn. So, and this idea of grace, there's a second element to it, that it's unearned, that whatever little we've done to achieve that state of grace is not enough to account for it, that we paid a small price for something great. So this idea of gratitude comes in. We're grateful that the mind has reached that point where it's become strong, where it's not easily moved by other things. Yeah, we have this beautiful verse in the Gita, this one line. Yasmin stito na dukena gurunapi vichalyate, that we get established in that higher reality to such an extent that this mind is not moved even by heavy sorrow. That means that something takes place in our lives, a loss of a loved one or something like that. Yes, we feel that sorrow, but we're not shaken. We're not shaken by that. We have this term, kutastha. Kutastha, very common in Gita. We become unmovable like a mountain. They talk about that state of mind where just like the anvil of a blacksmith, well, repeated blows come to it, and the anvil is unmoved. That to reach that state of mind, we'll have to say that this is grace, if we can reach that type of state of mind. So because of this, with this state that we're trying to achieve, Sri Ramakrishna says, this is one of the signs of knowledge. No matter how many sorrows, afflictions, dangers, and obstacles one may be faced with, one's mind does not undergo any change. It is like the blacksmith's anvil, which receives constant blows from the hammer and still remains unshaken. So, when are we safe? From one point of view, we're never 100% safe. And we have a beautiful illustration in the life of Holy Mother, that she was not feeling well one day and she slept a little late in the morning. This is when she was at Dakshineswar and the Nahabat. This, of course, in the case of Holy Mother, these are all meant for us, not that she was Mother herself. Anyhow, so she said the next morning she found that the mind said, well, you slept late yesterday. Why not today? You can, and it went on for 2 or 3 days. And then she said, the Mother is trying to show me the nature of this mind, that you can never feel 100% safe. You have to constantly observe and monitor. And so she said from that day on, she vowed that this would never happen again. Swami Brahmananda says, the mind rebels against effort. See, this is the problem. The more we try to control it, the more the mind will fight back. The mind rebels against effort. It always seeks ease and comfort. But if you wish to achieve anything in spiritual life, in life in general, you must force it to struggle. That is the only way to make your mind steady. Should you give up meditation because the mind does not like it? If you go on in that way, you can never learn to meditate. Regular war must be waged against the mind. Now, who is waging it? The mind itself. To force the mind to obey you is the ideal of spiritual discipline. It's very strong, but this effort, this emphasis on self-effort is something that we can't ignore. As much as we may believe in grace, this self-effort, Thakur himself, he says so many times that you have to have the grit and determination. That we have to really struggle in spiritual. In the beginning, then it should get easier and easier and easier. Swamiji says, we are slaves to our own and everybody else's mind. Whether we are good or bad, that makes no difference. We are led here and there because we cannot help ourselves. We say, we think, we do, etc. It is not so. We think because we have to think. We act because we have to. We are slaves to ourselves and to others. Deep down in our subconscious mind are stored up all the thoughts and acts of the past, not only of this life, but of all the other lives we have lived. This great boundless ocean of subjective mind is full of all the thoughts and actions of the past. Each one of these is striving to be recognized, pushing outwards for expression, surging wave after wave out upon the objective mind, the conscious mind. These thoughts, the stored up energy, we take for natural desires, etc. It is because we do not raise their true origin. We obey them blindly, unquestioningly, and slavery, the most helpless kind of slavery, is the result. We call ourselves free. Free. The mind uncontrolled and unguided will drag us down forever, rend us, kill us. Now the positive part will come. The mind controlled and guided will save us and free us. So it must be controlled. And psychology, Raja Yoga, this was an introduction to Raja Yoga, teaches us how to do it. So how do we do it? We talked about meditation. One of the things that we learn in meditation is that we can separate ourselves from the mind. However we understand it, we can observe the workings of the mind. We can observe it as an independent observer. We can start to see that every emotion, every feeling, every desire that comes into the mind is nothing but a vritti. We have this beautiful way of understanding things, that a little wave takes place in the what they call chitta. And this gives us a certain type of experience. So if we can separate ourselves, then even when the mind is unhappy, we can say that this unhappiness vritti is in the mind. When we get angry, I'm not angry. This anger vritti has arisen in the mind. I'll observe it. I won't invite it to stay. I'll let it go and leave. Now, what happens eventually is that the mind, the tendency of the mind to have that type of modification becomes less and less. So it's not simply that I've taught myself how to observe the mind always getting angry. No, I'll find that because I can observe the mind and I can see that this anger is not helpful for me, there's nothing gained by it, that the mind will learn eventually, and that tendency of the mind will become less and less. This is how we modify and change and replace our samskaras. It's a very important aspect of spiritual life, how we deal with these tendencies that we have. We have to reinvent ourselves in spiritual life. And all of those old tendencies that we have, tendency to get angry, to get jealous, to be proud and arrogant, all of it, we have to observe the mind and ask the mind, does it make you happy, all of these things? Are you pleased with yourself? Yeah, and say, if not, then some changes are going to take place here. So this is what we try to do. We in meditation, so we get to observe the mind that way. Prayer. We don't emphasize prayer as much as we should probably in our Vedantic tradition. Thakur emphasized it tremendously. But what do we pray for? Let this rascal mind not drag me down. Let me have a deeper insight. Let me hold on to God. Let you pull me up. Don't let this mind cause all of this trouble for me. So this type of prayer is very, very helpful because it also helps transform us. If we pray for devotion, Thakur says that type of prayer is always answered. How is it answered? The power and sincerity of that prayer will always bring more devotion. Even if we don't believe in any external deity that will bestow something on us, that's the sincerity of that prayer will always work. So we can utilize this prayer. It'll bring also a type of surrender, which is also a very, very active part of our spiritual practice. And this is also, if we understand this simply, is talking to the mind itself. Forget about talking to God. We may not have much belief in that, but we talk to the mind. It'll give us that sense of separation from the mind. We have so many beautiful instances and so many songs. We look at so many of these songs begin, "Oh, my mind." There's Ram Prasad songs and others where we're talking to the mind. There's one beautiful song, "Oh, my mind, let us go to Kamarpukur, Cholomon." Yeah, and we saw many different examples of that, and how we can feel ourselves to be separate from the mind. So Thakur would very often do that especially with regard to different desires that would come into his mind. He would say, "Oh, my mind, what is this? You want to know what it tastes, what it feels like to smoke from a very expensive, fancy silver hubble bubble. You have some desire to put on some very fancy shawl. You want to taste all of the sweetmeats. Then what is this?" And then he goes to Mathur Babu and says, "I have this desire." So he would let him do all of these things, and then he would analyze and talk to his mind. Well, did you really like it? Was it worth it? So he says, "Once the idea came to me to put on a very expensive robe embroidered with gold and to smoke a silver hubble bubble. Mathur Babu sent me the new robe and the hubble bubble. I put on the robe. I also smoked the hubble bubble in various fashions. Sometimes I smoked it reclining this way, and sometimes that way. Sometimes with head up, sometimes with head down. Then I said to myself, oh mind," how many times he says this? "Oh mind, this is what they call smoking a silver hubble bubble. Immediately I renounced it. I kept the robe on my body a few minutes longer, then took it off. I began to trample it underfoot and spit on it, saying, so it's an expensive robe, but it only increases one's pride." So this is another way of analyzing the mind, talking to the mind and looking at these things. And one thing we observe about the mind is that it's willing to put up with things, the negative consequences. I talked about the food that gives us a heartburn. Thakur talks about the camel that likes to eat this very tasty type of leaf from a thorny bush. And the only way to eat get the leaves is to get some of the thorns, and its gums will bleed. And he says, but the camel doesn't give it up because he likes the taste of it. Or he says there's something called a hog plum. And he says, what is this hog plum? He says it has a big pit, and the outer skin is bitter. And if you eat it, it gives you colic, but it tastes good. Yeah, the little bit of flesh inside, it tastes nice. So people go on eating it, they're willing to put up with everything. So we have to understand that this type of analysis, we can say to the mind, what are you doing? Why do you keep doing this, making the same mistakes over and over again? So talking to our own mind. And if we do that, then this mind will become our friend, This is what I was saying before. So Swami Brahmananda, he says, but know this, there is no greater guru than your own mind. See, this is when the mind attains to that higher state, when the mind has become purified by prayer and contemplation. Now, what does it mean, purified? It means free from all passions and free from all these lower desires. The pure mind, purified by prayer, again, the role of prayer and contemplation. It will direct you from within. Even in your daily duties, the inner guru will guide you until the goal is reached. Have intense love for God, and the mind will always remain tranquil and pure. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, this state of perfection, state of realization, when we reach that state, it's impossible for the mind to direct us to do anything that will be harmful for anyone. He says then, like the expert dancer, will never miss a beat, never take a false step. Then it becomes automatic. Until then, we trust that purified mind, but still keep one eye open and observe it. So this is the first sense, I'll say, of what we mean by the grace of the mind. Now, there's a second higher sense that I want to talk about, and this has to do with the nature of the mind in this state of meditation, the meditative state. Now, the meditative state is not what we do in meditation. What we do in meditation is try to control this wandering mind a little bit. But there's a meditative state where the mind attains a certain level of serenity and quietude and transparency. It becomes very clear, and we can see deep within this higher type of reality. Then we've attained some state of real meditation. And we have this term, prasada. Everybody knows this term. We hear that term and we think that we'll get something good to eat. But it has other meanings to it. This prasada, really we can say means grace. We have many words, Kali Prasada, different names like that. David Prasada, the grace of God, grace of Mother. So a very common meaning. It means also pleased. That we, especially in the sense that if we worship the Divine Mother, then the Mother becomes pleased. If we prasanna, this idea, prasanna vadanam devi, this in the hymn to Holy Mother, you look at the smile on her face, as if that she's pleased. Her devotees, her children have come in her presence, and she's gracious, pleased and gracious at the same time. But this word prasada, it also means clear, crystal clear, quiet, calm. So especially we read the descriptions of the Stita Prajna in the chapter 2 of Gita. There are many terms like this, manah prasada. Throughout the Gita and other places also, that usually it'll be translated as something as this mind in that, the serene, the quiet type of mind, but equally it can be translated, this is the grace of the mind. So the mind in a state of grace is the mind that's not attacked by different thoughts and desires and passions and all of that. That's also this grace of the mind in this state of meditation. So this word prasada always has that meaning to it. We say prasida matar. We prayed it to Mother, that hymn to Holy Mother. Prasida matar vinayena yache. I pray to you with great humility. Please be gracious towards me. So that's prasada. And what does it mean, be gracious? Let this mind be calm. Let this mind not be a rascal. Let this mind cooperate. Let it be my friend. Let it reach that point where it can remain content to think of you. So this is also that state, this prasada, the mind becomes transparent. Swamiji, yesterday we saw talks about this idea when the surface of the lake becomes very, very calm and clear and quiet, you can see the very bottom of it, little stones that there and everything. You can pierce through and see the reality underlying everything. So this is the type of mind that Sri Ramakrishna is talking about when he says this purified mind. So, very often when people say to him, but we hear that God can't be realized with his mind. And he'll say, that's the ordinary mind. We hear about this manonasha, mentioned it yesterday, destruction of the mind. That's that ordinary mind. That this mind in the state of grace, is a higher type of mind, is a different type of thing. Is the ability of that mind to experience the divine realm is something completely different. So Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, God is directly perceived by the mind. See, in Raja Yoga, we get this idea the mind has to stop, has to be empty. In the Jnana Yoga, we say mind has to be completely awake. So he says, yes, God is directly perceived by the mind, but not by this ordinary mind. It is the pure mind. So pure in both senses. Pure, that free from all these selfish, aggressive types of attitudes and feelings and passions, free from that, and still and quiet. Both meanings are there. It is the pure mind that perceives God, and at that time, this ordinary mind does not function. So that's this nirvritti state. The ordinary mind is not functioning, but still, higher mind is functioning. A mind that has the slightest trace of attachment to the world cannot be called pure. When all the impurities of the mind are removed, you may call that mind or pure Atman. That mind is no longer mind. This is that idea we saw yesterday, that wave, when it recedes, it becomes one with the ocean. The mind itself becomes one with the ocean. Then again he says, is it an easy thing to obtain the knowledge of Brahman? It is not possible unless the mind is annihilated, manonasha. This is that ordinary mind again. The Guru said, give me your mind and I shall give you knowledge. So this is behind that statement that Thakur made many times, pure mind, pure buddhi, pure intellect, and pure Atman, pure self, are one and the same. Sometimes he'll say, merge the mind in the intellect, merge the intellect in the Atman. So if this mind is perfectly pure and clean and transparent, how does it differ from Atman? Then it becomes pure consciousness and pure awareness. So this is the point that he's making, that the mind that is undisturbed by the senses, that can focus itself on this divine reality. See, our meditation in our tradition, it's really not meant to make this mind empty or blank. It is meant to focus so deeply on the chosen ideal that all other thoughts disappear, that it'll emerge in that, become one with that. This is that perfectly concentrated mind. So even in Gita, we have this phrase, atindriyam and buddhi grahyam, that it's beyond all of the senses, but it can be experienced through this higher mind, buddhi. So even there, we get this idea that the mind itself will be the agent or the instrument that's used even for the highest type of realization. We have no other choice. There's no other instrument that we have other than the mind itself. So beyond the senses, yet realizable by the intellect, that's the purified mind. And when the mind attains to that state, then we feel it's a state of grace. So this is the mind in that state of grace. Not that it's bestowing grace on us or anything. In that state of perfect serenity, perfect clarity, perfect calmness, and that state of realization. So this will be the second meaning of this grace of the mind. Now, the third one I want to talk about is not so much this mind merging, but this clarity of mind. So the one before this, we can say, is a little bit through this Raja Yoga, that mind that becomes perfectly still, can it reach that state of merging, or samadhi, if we want to use the technical term. But this type of mind that can see through this maya, this type of mind that has that clarity of understanding. This is also a type of grace of the mind. So this is this idea we get from the highest non-dualistic school of Vedanta, that we only have to realize that we are that here and now. All of this business, transformation business we talk about is the mind. The real self is perfect from the very beginning. All we have to do is somehow attain to that clarity of understanding, here and now clarity of understanding, where we can say, yes, I am that I have that realization, some flash has come, some type of higher understanding that I'm in the presence of the divine everywhere. I see God everywhere. I feel that divine presence within myself. This is also a state of grace, grace of the mind. If we can achieve that feeling, I was never bound, that I've always been perfect, that I only had to realize this higher truth. This is also that state of grace. We find another beautiful phrase from the Bhagavad Gita. There's a section that talks about the different types of happiness: sattvic happiness, rajasic happiness, and tamasic happiness. And the sattvic happiness, Sri Krishna says, in the beginning, we won't necessarily have a taste for it. It'll taste like poison, he says. At the end, it'll taste like nectar. But then we get this one phrase, Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. Again, this prasadajam. Now, it's a very interesting phrase, Atma Buddhi. Yesterday, we talked about this Hanuman saying Deha Buddhi and the Jiva Buddhi and Atma Buddhi. This Buddhi, it means, in that sense, when I realize myself to be, say Deha Buddhya Tudasoham, when I think of myself as the body. So this Atma Buddhi Prasadajam, through the grace of the mind, through the clarity of the mind, where I understand myself to be the Atman, Atma Buddhi, I have that understanding, I am that. That this brings happiness. This is a sattvic type of happiness when I know that as much as the body has its imperfections, as much as the mind has the imperfections, but this grace comes as a result of this grace where I understand that my real nature is I am the self, I am the witness, I was not born, I will not die, I'll transcend all of this. This is all very temporary, passing show, that I alone will remain. This is a very high Advaitic idea, but still, this it'll bring some type of happiness to us, sattvic happiness. The joy that will come not from enjoying nice food or not from going to nice places, just that joy that comes from within. So all of these different types of happiness, or the type of grace of the mind, that they all depend upon what is the state of mind that we have. How trained is this mind? How gracious is this mind for us? So Swami Krishna says, it is all a question of the mind. Bondage and liberation are of the mind alone. The famous verse from Ashtavakra Samhita that Thakur liked very much. The mind will take the color you dye it with. It is like white clothes just returned from the laundry. If you dip them in red dye, they will be red. If you dip them in blue or green, they will be blue or green. They will take only the color you dip them in, whatever it may be. So this is why we have to make sure that we're constantly dyeing the mind in this thought of God. The mind is everything. Bondage is of the mind and freedom is also of the mind. The person is free if he constantly thinks, I am a free soul. How can I be bound? Whether I live in the world or in the forest, I am a child of God, the King of Kings. Who can bind me? If bitten by a snake, a man may get rid of its venom by saying emphatically, there is no poison in me. In the same way, by repeating with grit and determination, I am not bound, I am free. One really becomes so, one really becomes free. This, of course, was Swamiji's great emphasis. How many times he said, tell yourself, tell your mind, over and over again, that I'm perfect, I'm free, one with everything. Tell you this type of affirmation. And this idea that one who believes one is free, one who believes one is bound remains bound. This is, as I say, the verse from the Ashtavakra Samhita played a very important role in Swamiji's life. That Swamiji in the beginning was against many of these ideas. He had his background was with the Brahmo Samaj, and they didn't care for a lot of these ideas. Guru and Avatar and the extreme Advaita Vedanta, they believed in a formless God, but with qualities that you worship. So when Sri Ramakrishna would say, all of this is nothing but Brahman, Swamiji would laugh. So he was sitting outside one day with Hazra, and they're joking, making fun. What did Thakur say? That means this pot is God, this chair, table is God, all of that. So they're laughing. And Thakur comes out, and he says, what are you talking about? And as he's asking them, he touches this Narendra. And then he says, the magic touch of the master that day immediately brought a wonderful change over my mind. So everything, again, question of the mind. I was astounded to find that really there was nothing in the universe but God. I saw it quite clearly, but kept quiet to see if the impression would last. But it did not subside in the course of the day. I returned home, but there too, everything I saw appeared to be Brahman. I sat down to take my meal, but found that everything, the food, the plate, the person who served, even myself, was nothing but that. This state continued for some days. When I became normal again, I realized that I must have had a glimpse of the non-dual state. So this mind is not even just a question of purification, but it can be raised to a different level. Thakur talks about it in terms of Kundalini sometimes, but we see this world the way we see it because the mind is in this state. We can go to a higher state, see everything as light. We can go a higher state, see everything as ideas. Of course, these don't mean much to us, but Thakur had these experiences. Go to a higher state, the world disappears. So, but again, come back and the world is here. It's not that we're imagining it, but all the question of the mind. This is the whole point. So this became a great conviction with Swamiji, this fact that we only have to get this mind to understand that we're already free and we're already perfect. He said, we are ever free if we would believe it, only have faith enough. You are the soul, free and eternal, ever free, ever blessed. Have faith enough and you will be free in a minute. Everything in time, space, and causation is bound. The soul is beyond all time, all space, all causation. That which is bound is nature, not the soul. Therefore, proclaim your freedom and be what you are, ever free, ever blessed. So that is also what we can say, this state of grace. The grace of when the mind has that clarity of understanding, that's also, we can say, the grace of the mind. So this may be the highest state of grace. When with the eyes open, we see divinity everywhere. We become free from the pull of this lower mind, free from all the passions and desires and everything, and understand things with certain type of depth of clarity. And then again, this power to quiet the mind to the point where we can enter into very deep states of meditation. So these are all different ways that we can understand what's meant by this wonderful idea of the grace of the mind. So we should all pray, part of our prayer, that let this mind be my friend. Let this be my greatest friend. Let the mind be Guru. The Thakur said, eventually the mind will become the Guru in spiritual life. So I'll stop here, and not much time, but I'm ready to answer questions if people have them. Yes.
Hi, Swamiji. I have a question on meditation. So,
Yes.
what is the difference between the state of the mind while sleeping and during meditation?
Yes. Actually, the state of mind in deep sleep and the state of mind in deep samadhi have that feature in common that there's no functioning of the mind in any ordinary sense. But one is with the mind fully awake and the other with the mind, sleeping mind. So I heard once from Swami Sarvagatanandaji. I mentioned his name yesterday. He was a wonderful Swami who He was in Boston and Providence for many years. He said the difference is between one is awareness of nothing, the other is awareness of nothing. So with the mind fully awake, we have that experience of what it means to have that mind perfectly still and calm. The other is the mind is still and calm, but we don't have that clarity of mind to be able to understand it and appreciate it. Second thing is, and Swamiji says this, you go to sleep a fool, you wake up a fool. You go into the state of meditation a fool, you come out a saint. So something happens in this real higher state of meditation that will transform us. Otherwise, they look similar. They look similar because in deep sleep, also the mind is not functioning in the ordinary way, but it's in that state of just merged, this state of, actually it means covered by ignorance. This Anandamaya Kosha is defined by that. It's the closest to that experience of reality, but it's covered by ignorance in the sense there's no self-awareness of it. Whereas the state of Samadhi Turiya state, that'll be a full-blown experience of that reality, which will transform us and change us. So they're almost polar opposites, but we know opposites often look alike. They look similar.
Sri Ramakrishna is compared to Sri Ramakrishna's mind is like a dry matchstick, which at the slightest suggestion it ignites in the consciousness of God. So how can we prepare our mind to realize God?
Yeah, there's a phenomenon which Thakur used to call uddipana, that it meant something can quickly catch on fire. If you have very dry straw, something, and it gets near a flame, quickly it'll catch on fire. So this is something that was a distinctive characteristic of his mind in particular. And he used to say that the other two who had that in common were Radha and Chaitanya Deva. This idea of uddipana, that when the mind becomes pure and when the mind has some devotional element to it, that something that will trigger a mental association with something else. So he used to give many examples that with Radha, if she saw a dark rain cloud, that it would appear to her to be the same complexion of Krishna, and she would go into ecstasy. Or if she would see a peacock, he used to have a peacock feather in his crown, so that would trigger that. So this, I think, is a personality trait. There can be many God-realized souls that don't have that exactly. What we can do, if we want to make this mind sensitive to spiritual things, is try to lead a spiritual life. Much of spiritual life has to do with how we live in the world, and to lead a pure type of life, to lead a meditative type of life, to observe carefully. When we keep holy company, to observe. And hopefully this tendency of the mind to be enkindled by some spiritual idea, that it'll grow on its own. But as I say, I think it's something very particular to Sri Ramakrishna, that if we look at all the direct disciples, they were all great souls, of course, but plenty of them, they could have seen a peacock and nothing would have happened. This was just something that was very prominent in his life. And as I say, it goes back to Radhamani and it goes back to Chaitanya Deva, this uddipana. So it happened with him many, many times. He saw that young English boy leaning against a tree, bending three ways. Immediately he thinks is Trivanga Krishna and goes into ecstasy. So everything, that was just the type of his mind, so sensitive to these the associations that would bring some spiritual ideal to his mind. But for us, we want to have a pure mind, we have to lead a pure life. It's a very simple type of thing. We want to be free from desires, we have to stop engaging in them. Everything within our limits and moderation. It doesn't do any good to be too radical and tear things off. Thakur wasn't in favor of tearing things off. In fact, he was in favor of experimentation. We saw that, yeah, you have some desire, okay. If it's a harmless desire, then fulfill it. Then you're done with it. If it's not a harmless desire, then tell your mind, no, you can't go there. That's all. So again, this process of discrimination. Yes.
Wait, actually, there's a couple questions online, so I'll read one of those first. Dr. Ajit Roy asks, Maharaj, is it grace of the mind or results of one's practice and prarabdha karma, I guess this is.
This idea of grace always has some element of gratuitousness. It always has some element that we can't trace it back to, we can't explain it in terms of anything else. I would say, we may say 90% can be explained through self-effort and through prarabdha karma. But why it happens and when it happens, if we have some breakthrough, that's why we call it grace. We call it grace because we can't explain why and how it happened to me at that particular time. Who am I to deserve to have such a wonderful experience? But definitely the role of self-effort and definitely the role of karma. The Sri Ramakrishna, this prarabdha karma and samskara, he had a tremendous belief in that. He very often would say, he would say to M, because M didn't believe in these things in the beginning. It's hard to imagine that in those days that there were these Western educated people who didn't have much faith even in reincarnation. So as Ramakrishna, he would say that this idea of reincarnation, that the main point of this is that we're born with certain samskaras. So he would say to M, he would say, point to these boys, born and others, very pure young souls. He would say, you have to admit that they were born with good samskaras. So that means we're born with the good tendencies, that we may have done spiritual practice before, that we have every advantage. But this is what I was saying before, that grace of God, every advantage, without the grace of the mind, we won't be able to do it. So this idea of grace is that X factor. Yeah, if we say, well, I've tried as much as I can, whatever samskaras I have, karma I have, I can't do much about that. Why it happens, we can't say. Now we have the example of this. One devotee, he was doing this shavasatana. You take a corpse, this tantric type of thing, and you do all of these things and collect all the items, then you sit on it. So he's doing it, and the tiger comes, so he runs away out of fear. Another man comes along and sees, oh, everything is all set. Let me see what will happen. So he sits on the corpse. Immediately, mother appears before us. And then he says, Mother, I don't understand. The man, so much effort. He did all of that work. I did nothing. And then she says, you don't know, life after life, you've been calling on me. So we don't know about this prarabdha karma. Even then, he'll say it was grace. He'll have that feeling it was grace. I don't feel that I did anything to deserve this. So this idea of grace, to me, it means that we don't really care to analyze things to that point where we say that I did it myself, that it was a result of my effort and my karma and everything. That feeling that all I could do is finally surrender everything. And this, see, Thakur had this concept of grace as being something that's universal and accessible to everyone if we only know how to accept it. Of course, he gives the illustration of raising the sail, and this breeze of grace will carry it. So we have to raise the sail, but if that breeze of grace isn't there, nothing will happen. But that breeze of grace is always blown, he says. So it's a different type of concept. One is this undeserved idea of grace, and the other is this universal idea of grace. He accepted both of them, actually. So yes, both are indispensable. We need to have this good samskaras, which we can create in this lifetime also. And we need to put forth self-effort in order to avail ourselves of that grace. Grace in the mind.
So you suggested that the pure mind or the higher mind ultimately perceives the God or achieves the realization. Wondering whether other way around is also possible, wherein when you realize the true nature, when you realize you are not mind, that purifies the mind itself.
The impure mind will always be pulled down somehow. It's very hard. Yeah, we should think theoretically that all I have to do is realize I'm separate from this mind. Why bother about purifying the mind? Just have that realization, I'm not this mind. But somehow it doesn't work that way. That mind that doesn't have a certain level of purity won't be interested, number one. And number two, it'll get clouded. It won't have that type of clarity. So we can't eliminate that step of purification. This is why in Jnana Yoga and Raja Yoga, we always start with the Shamadama and the yamas and niyamas and everything. We have to have these, lead a good, pure, ethical type of life. And to have this is the whole point of this idea of grace of the mind, that without this pure type of mind, we won't get that clarity of mind that can say that, no, now I know that I'm something separate from that. And if we start to have that realization, I'm something separate from this mind, that doesn't mean I've realized anything. That should help purify the mind, of course. This is what I was saying. If we can watch the mind and watch the tendencies of the mind and disidentify and hope that we can have different tendencies, the mind will change. So this is one aspect of this Jnana Yoga and this affirmation, that the more we tell ourselves that I am not this mind, that I am one with that reality within, I'm the witness and everything, that should also help transform us, of course. Yes.
Maharaj, thank you very much for all the lovely talks and for giving the practical tips for meditation from your own insights and experiences. I was wondering if you could recommend some books or articles that we can read to follow up on this sort of things, if you have anything in mind.
I always go back to the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There's nothing better than that. There are books that are written, different talks that were given on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And one is by Swami Bhuteshanandaji. Swami Bhuteshanandaji Maharaj was a very brilliant and original thinker and had tremendous clarity. When he would speak, it would just be so simple and so clear. And he had a wonderful sense of humor. And he was a perfect example of how one can transcend this pain and suffering of the body, that he was always cheerful. He was always cheerful no matter how much he was suffering from anything. So he wrote a beautiful commentary. I don't know what they called it in English on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That's one thing. All of these reminiscences of the direct disciples, all of them, they'll all emphasize these things. The Eternal Companion for Seekers of God. These are all very, very helpful books. Let me just tell one story about Swami Bhuteshanandaji, that he had a lot of surgeries performed on him. And he was quite old, I think 97 at the end. And there was another heart procedure that they could do. And they said, if we do it and it's successful, it can extend his life another year or two, something like that. And they were all afraid to approach him, a man that age, to ask him to go through another surgery. So one of the other Swamis, probably Atmajnanananda, he said, I'll talk to him. So he mentioned him and he said, the day I joined the order, I gave this body, mind, everything to Sri Ramakrishna. It doesn't belong to me. I don't feel I have the right to make that decision. You all decide for me. So this grace of the mind comes from conviction. It comes from having that type of attitude, this type of surrender. That also, the grace of the mind means nischinta. The grace of the mind means that mind is free from worry and anxiety, that can attain to that state of perfect surrender. Perfect surrender is also grace of the mind. that whatever happens is Mother's will. Who am I to decide? And to be cheerful in the midst of all of it. He had that ability, a very rare thing that no one ever saw him. At most, he would get quiet sometimes, but never in a dark mood or anything.